Well, here we are at Euston Hall in Suffolk, just about to talk to the person who was the youngest Duke in the country, Harry Grafton, until, that is, the Cambridges came along, but that is another story. He's got something very interesting to say to any of you who are about to buy a large landed estate. Now, in order to see his pleasure grounds, that's his garden to you and I, we're going to need to go by car. It's 65 acres of land where some of the greatest names in landscaping have worked over the centuries, from John Evelyn, the writer, tree expert and sometimes courtier of Charles II, who was Harry's ancestor on the wrong side of the blanket, unfortunately, to William Kent and Capability Brown. Now Harry's undertaken the great task of clearing decades, actually centuries of growth to restore the grounds.
You can see absolutely none of it. And
This layering of historic landscapes from the 17th to the 18th centuries makes restoration work especially challenging. In some respects, it's like trying to deconstruct a smoothie.
This is quite pretty. This is when my grandfather actually used to go swimming. Just let's pop out for a second. I would imagine that Evelyn came in and he was a great landscaper, and he would have created all of the idea of going from a formal garden around Euston Hall to a more wild garden as we go back through the pleasure grounds, which is all this area. And I think Kent really took that on, and I think there would have been some waterways, but I think they probably would have wanted to finish off the landscape by getting someone like Brown in who was an expert in water engineering, to come and create a waterscape, which is what we're hopefully getting back to.
Harry took over the 110 acres of parkland and its pleasure grounds from his grandfather in 2011 and immediately applied for grants from English Heritage and Natural England for 60% of the £320,000 needed to restore the weirs, pools and river that form an important part of the landscape. So today what we're seeing is the last day of your project, and probably the last time this was dug out was in Brown's time.
On this scale, yes. I think poor Brown, if he'd had these sort of machines in his day, would have realised how quickly they've done it, because they did it with 3 machines this size in 4 months. We were interested to find out that over here there was an island that they came across, which they've reopened up, called Jockey Boy's Hole, which is where the jockeys would have come and gone for a sort of swim after doing the gallops in hot weather during the time of the 3rd and the 4th Dukes in the sort of 18th century.
And you were saying that you've had Europe's biggest digger here?
Well, it's coming on Friday. The biggest machine in Europe, which is owned by this company, is arriving just to finish off the last bit by the hall, because we need the reach to get in there. So that's quite exciting. So I think my son will like that.
Eat your heart out, Brown.
Yeah, I think so.
In keeping with Euston's landscaping tradition, Justin Spink is the latest landscaper to work at Euston. 2 years ago, his garden was planted to give the family an enclosed space beside the house. Beyond the garden's serpentine yew hedge, where the diggers have been removing 30,000 tonnes of silt, Capability Brown's original drawings have been critical to finding the original waterways. Just talk me through these.
So these are the Capability Brown maps for the Euston estate when he was employed to do the river project. But it is just interesting just to see the detail and the accuracy of these maps that still are accurate with the project today. So this would be building up the river here, the Blackbourne, to the Hall, and actually it continues. I think this is the second part, which then goes along the Broadwater here to the basin and the Hall as well on this side.
But he was precise, wasn't he? I mean, they weren't random trees when he put trees in, or his clumps. That was exactly where he wanted those clumps. And they're still there to this day. I mean, these clumps here, we would have driven by, that would have been the Duke's Ride coming across here. So they're accurate, they really are. And it's really impressive, actually. He's penciled in the little shadows and everything.
Yeah, and the copses of trees as well, they all still exist to this day. So he knew what he was doing.
Of course, none of this comes cheap. The estate farm makes money, but in order to get the historic park and pleasure grounds to at least pay their way a little, Harry's looking into using the house as a wedding venue, as well as hosting a car rally in August. And in June, he's going to hold their first music and Cajun food festival called Red Rooster. For some, it might feel like a lot of intrusion. So would Harry advise buying a large estate?
I would urge some caution in buying a large house without any assets to go with it, i.e. farmland or something of that type, because the problem I think with these houses and these grounds is they're very expensive to run, and to have another revenue stream coming from a purchase, i.e. farmland or whatever it is going to help. Otherwise you'll end up pouring money in and not a lot of return coming back. But then again, that's what a lot of people are quite happy to do.
That counts me out, which is a shame because I'm helping to run the festivities for Brown's tercentenary in 2016, and Euston would make a great HQ. Jane Owen, Financial Times.